Good morning, YouTubers and Twitchers alike. Bear with me if my microphone is not sounding well, and please leave comments if. Yeah, let me try to set this microphone a little better. Problem that I have is that there's residual noise from the background, namely the wind today, and so the wind, you might hear the wind occasionally, but set this so that yeah, if I talk quietly, then you can still hear it. You can still kind of hear it. Cut out less. Alright, there we go. That should be good. So today I'm going to be... Oh, I should introduce myself. I am David Pixelly, and I go by The Muzzle, and I am The Muzzle Mastering. I offer a digital mastering service, and I decided to start doing live streams occasionally while I do mastering. And I do want to mention though that my CPU cannot handle the live streaming too well, so I won't be doing a lot of the things that I normally do with my mastering. As far as things that are CPU intensive, I can only go so far. So without further ado, so this is a track from Gene Berlin. You can find his stuff on soundcloud.com/GeneBerlin. He does have 1-minute snippets of the album that is going to be released next month. And I'm using about the same 1-minute snippet, a little bit more for this tutorial. But I'll tell you what I've done so far, because this is a step that I can't do while streaming because of the CPU. Is the first thing I always do is I go to let me set up my phone so that I can see the YouTube comments. See here. My channel. So I am live. Looks like my camera is stretched or something, but that's okay. I will be taking questions occasionally, periodically. So if you have any questions, go ahead and leave comments. I can't get to the chat in Twitch as often because I can't do that from my phone. But yeah, I'll say this into the chat on YouTube. Leave comments with questions if you have any, period. Please let me know if my microphone sounds okay, period. So yeah, the first thing I do is I play like the loudest part of the song through the mastering assistant on Ozone. That gives me a starting point. It's just helpful. A lot of the times I'll do this more than one time on different parts of the song, so that I can take a look at like what the EQ is doing, and then, you know, if I do it on like 3 different parts of the song that all sound different, then it'll give me 3 different EQ curves, and I'll kind of make like somewhere in between all of them. I do want to say that I don't use these things that it does. the way they are. I always adjust them. For example, with EQ, like on this low shelf, it's ducking by 1.3. I usually make it like 10 or 20% of that, if at all. I try to do as little EQ as possible, and I try to let the dynamic EQ handle more. But I also lower the things on the dynamic EQ, like for example, it'll be less gain reduction, a smaller Q, which makes it a wider bell. In this case, it's a bell, and I'll make the threshold a little bit closer to 0, like minus 23 instead of minus 24, so it kicks in less often. That all depends on what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing throughout the song. In this case with Gene Berlin, he wants this sub-bass stuff to be left in there. So I'm not really doing high pass filters. Well, I probably will on this song. On the first side of his album, I didn't use any high pass filters. I did some low shelving cuts where necessary. Let me see here. So I take a look at what the maximizer was set to. In this case, it's set to my favorite setting, IRC4 Modern. I always turn True Peak on. For this case, I'm setting the ceiling to close to 0. Because I'm doing a mastering for digital reproduction first, and then later on I'll make the ceiling close to -1 for the YouTube mastering, and for the he's gonna have me do vinyl masterings for this, so I haven't gotten to that stage yet. So I go ahead and save this maximizer as a setting, GB track 8 MA for mastering assistant. And then so now I have that. I did notice that when I bypass the maximizer, it still uses CPU, so for the purpose of this video, I'm going to get rid of it. I just saved that setting. And for the purpose of this video, I'm going to use, let's see, where is it? I'm going to use AD Clip from Air Windows. Air Windows is all free stuff. Most of it's open source. He's supported on Patreon. And a lot of his free tools are gradually replacing tools that I use that I paid for. Expensive stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and just turn on this AD Clip. Let me see. I played the song earlier and I noted the BPM, the true peaks on the left and right, and the LUFS, the integrated LUFS value, as well as the loudness units, which is the loudness range. So this is a very dynamic song, you can see. I'm not going to use compression because he wants it to be preserved as far as dynamics. He wants me to add a little bit of character and make it louder, basically, for the digital mastering. For vinyl, I'll get it as loud as I can with doing at least barely any limiting, probably no limiting at all. So look at these true peaks here. I got this with Isotope Insight, by the way. You're not going to get true peak meters, or you're not going to get your true peaks when you look at the old school VU meters. They're not accurate as far as the true peaks go, because the true peaks happen after it passes through the digital process and is once it's played back on the analog speakers. So that's when those true peaks will click above and they'll distort or clip, so to say, above, and then that sounds shitty. You don't want that. So I note that this is peaking at minus 1.9. So with this AD clip, I'm going to give it about 1.9 boost, just so it's a little louder for your ears. I'm not going to use this enhance and soften for now. It should be fine, because it's probably not clipping more than 0.1. So first thing I'll do for this tutorial, I'll explain this stuff a little bit more later. So I have this ozone deactivated. There's no effects on right now. I loaded up my isotope insight. Oh, please let me know if my microphone sounds bad or if there's any other issues with the streaming quality. I am new to OBS and I'm still kind of tweaking the settings. So what I'll be looking for when I play the song is I'm going to set this isotope tonal balance plugin to bass heavy. I'm going to be looking at these ranges on the broad spectrum, and I'm going to be looking at if the playback, if it goes outside of the range, basically. And for the purpose of this song, or in this case, it doesn't really matter if it goes outside, because his stuff is very unique. I'm not like concerned that it's like within like a general like genre type of spectrum range. That doesn't really apply here, but it's still good to note. I just have this open to take a look at the true peaks and the LUFS. And then with the ozone imager, this information I can also see here on the sound field, is that when it drops below 0, it's going out of phase. Now that's okay in cases like this where it's kind of orchestral, or it has a classical element to the music. It's also like new age jazz type of electronic digital mixture, experimental. If it goes out of phase, I'm not too concerned, but I do end up narrowing stuff to keep things in phase as much as possible without losing the thickness. Sometimes I'll draw in some automation so that I'm adjusting the stereo image to get wider and then more narrow in spots where it drops out of phase. But I only do stuff like that when I'm spending a lot more time than I should on a mastering job. That if I get paid $20, then I should spend a maximum of 2 hours on the mastering job. But presently that hasn't been the case. I still need to get my system down to where I add tools quickly, adjust them quickly, and then get it done within an hour, and then that gives me more time to print a CD and listen to it in the car and then make adjustments. That's one thing that I have not been doing. I think for this album it's more important that it sounds good on headphones, studio monitors, and high quality speaker systems that are made for the home. Like people at home would be listening on a nice sound system, and then it's got to sound good in the club. In that case, I don't have access to PA speakers, but that's fine. He can ask me for adjustments later if it sounds bad in the club. but I'm pretty confident that it will sound good. And the digital distribution master versions will be the same ones that he would play in the club, and so that's why um, it's got a I have a brain fart. It's going to peak at just below 0 dB, and for SoundCloud and other streaming platforms, it's -1 or -1.5 in some cases. But so I'll play a song, everything's bypassed, and then I'll be looking at the stereo image, and I'll be looking at the EQ here. Uh-oh, I've got CPU issues. I might go close Firefox, see if I got any Twitch comments. Alright, I'm closing Mozilla. And then I'll go ahead and put this up here. I know my face looks stretched out. I need to fix the, you know what, I'll go ahead and just deactivate the webcam. That should help with the CPU. Okay, let's see if it works now. No, yeah, I definitely have some CPU issues. Okay, I'm going to minimize this. For some reason, the streaming doesn't work when I use my ASIO drivers in Ableton. I need to kind of troubleshoot that. So what can I do to fix the CPU thing? Even though this fab filter is in bypass, it eats up some CPU. This is my normal side shaping thing that I've been doing for a long time. I always adjust it. Don't freak out about this part. This is the sides going down to mono on the sides at around 90 hertz. And then there's a boost at around 110 hertz, or for the case of if A sharp is in key of the track, then I'll use A sharp. And I tend to lower this sometimes, depends on. The reason why I do that is to make it sound good on laptop speakers and crappy portable stereo speakers and headphones. As far as then you can hear more of the bass and the kick drum on the sides, and therefore it sounds better on those bad speakers. In this case, Gene isn't really concerned that much about that, so I'm probably not even going to use this shaping at all. But basically what I do is if it's falling out of phase, then I bring it down. If it needs to be fatter, I'll bring it up. Most of the times I end up needing to bring it down. I do a roll off up here on the sides because of, well, mostly for masterings that are done specifically for a lot of streaming platforms, because artifacts happen up here, and they happen on the sides. So like if you hear a little kind of digital farts, those are artifacts that happen up here, and sometimes you can't hear them, but they will affect the quality, and that's why I do a duck here. I might stop doing that. I might actually start raising it up, because if it's streaming at MP3 quality, for example, on SoundCloud, I think it streams at like 128 kilobytes per second. That's already taking out above 14 kilohertz. It's ducking it down by like 6 dB. And I always do a high shelf boost up here at 30 kilohertz. Even though in this case I'm just boosting silence, it somehow helps the track breathe. In this 1K to 2K area, I duck the sides because that's where it hurts our ears in a lot of cases. And around 200 hertz, I do this duck here as well, because that's the muddy area. And then it comes back up. Either, sometimes I'll adjust this so that it comes up slower or faster on the sides. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and delete this, and I'm going to use just Ozone Imager for the stereo image shaping, as well as Air Windows, either the widener, or I think it's called wider or widener plugin. I haven't tried it out yet, but that not only affects the stereo image, but it helps bring things either to the front or the back as far as the sides or the mids. It's a really handy tool, which I haven't used very much. Well, I haven't really used it effectively yet, but I'll probably try it on this. But I'm going to probably will use this 2 vinyl plug from Air Windows, because it does some nice side shaping. We just reset all this. So if you click or hold Alt and double click on things on most plugins, it'll set them to their default. So I kind of lied. I am going to use a high pass filter. It's set to 10 hertz by default on the mids and the sides, and I can't turn it off with this plugin, which I think the Airband, the way his high pass filters are, they sound so good. So I'm not as concerned as I would be if I was, I try to avoid high pass filtering. A lot of mastering engineers do the opposite. They try to high pass filter as much as they can without degrading the music, so that they can have more signal in the audio, in the audible range, above 23 hertz or so. I'm going to mute my mic for a minute and then I'll play the song, since we have some ambulances. I have to set my hotkeys. Thought I already set this. Yeah, mute. Is that okay? Why did that not work then? There we go. Bear with me, I'm troubleshooting my DAW to fix the lag situation. I'm just going to see if you guys can hear it when I use the ASIO drivers. And the answer is no. I'm not sure what exactly is going on. Oh, I think I know. I will be taking questions periodically. It looks like nobody has left a comment on YouTube. I can't check Twitch as often, but I will. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them. Don't hesitate. I think I have set this to 48 kilohertz sampling rate. That was my Windows driver. I believe that needs to be set to the same as the project. Since the audio that he sent me is 44.1K, then I set my Ableton to 44.1 and my Windows to 44.1, and I hope I have set my OBS to 44.1 as well. Should be. Nope. I'm going to have to restart OBS, so the streaming will end and I will start again in about a minute.